Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter. Thank you for joining us on In Time. The good news is that Trump appears to, for a number of reasons, have uh, backed off some, which is unusual. I never thought I would utter the phrases Trump backed off. In I was about to tell a very bad joke about backing off and paying for a prostitute with a check, but I think I will probably try to leave that one alone. At a minimum, he's in trouble with his own party. He's in trouble with a number of people who've come out against him. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Coming up, we do have tomorrow at 9 p.m. we will be discussing the protests, the riots, and the law with Uncivil Law. It will be his first time here on our show. We're very looking. We're very looking for. We're looking forward to that very much. We're going to be discussing two things. First is the cease and desist order that was given to Denver Police Department, saying that they could no longer use the non-life threatening munitions, any kind of anti-riot munitions without a captain or higher ranked on the scene who has assessed the situation and determined that it has already become violent and who has given the protesters a warning. Now, since we live in this age of people always trying to skirt the law and get around it, it's not only that they have to issue them the warning, they can't be kettled. So you have to have protesters who actually can leave. There has to be a clear way out, there has to be violence, and then after a warning, the police can engage. The police are fighting this temporary, I was going to say temporary restraining order. Yeah, I think it's a temporary restraining order. So we're going to be discussing that. We're also going to be discussing the consequences of the use and deployment of the LRAD. The LRAD stands for, I've now forgotten what, long range audio. LRAD, long range. It's the sound cannon, long range audio acoustic device, I believe is what it is. Long range acoustic device. Yep, that's it. These are the sound cannons that are used to immobilize people or repel them with sound. They apparently have some pretty significant health side effects. We on In Time have been sort of tracking whether or not they've been used. There's a lot of rumors. They have been used. We have the audio and video of it. They were used in Portland earlier, and Portland has said that they would stop using any devices of this kind and have started doing it again. We're going to be discussing that briefly. But at any rate, Uncivil Law will be with us tomorrow, 9 p.m., to discuss the law and to take your questions. We're also going to do a hangout. So this was, I thought, a very good idea. The lockdown is ending. I enjoyed the stories from the lockdown, and regrettably, I think we may have an opportunity to do those again. We'll see. But at a minimum, the good news is that crisis appears to be over for now. What we have is stories from protests and from riots. We know a number of people. We have invited a nurse to come join us, actually two nurses, including an EMT who has gone to these protests and actually been at the riots and functioned as an EMT at the riots. We're going to have on a couple of other guests that we're going to try to bring in, and we're going to have on Civil Law again. So on Civil Law will stay with us through to the 10 o'clock show, which will be stories from the protests. And it'll be a hangout. We invite anyone to come in, ask on Civil Law your questions. We've had a lot of questions that people have been dropping into the live chat, dropping into the Discord. So he will be on to discuss those, and we're just going to hang out for about an hour, 90 minutes, and people can tell their stories of what they've been seeing and participating in some cases. A disproportionate number of our viewers appear to be directly involved on the ground. And yeah, Dr. Zayas, we have had a number of reports of people who are regulars to In Time who have either seen or participated in these riots. So hopefully you guys will join us tomorrow again, 9 p.m. Protests and the Law with Uncivil Law, and then Uncivil Law will be joining us. ProLib will be with us also for 10 o'clock or 10:05 to do our hangout. We're also going to have our Patreon hangout that's been rescheduled for Tuesday, 9 p.m. Hopefully, ProLib and Courtney will be joining us. Anyone who wants to come by, if you're a patron, come hang out with us. We love to hear show ideas. We love to just talk about the show, cover what's been going on, what we're going to be doing next. We get a lot of our ideas from our patrons, so we really appreciate your support. If you haven't become a patron yet, the link to the Patreon is in the description. If you would like to join, we have lots of rewards. We have these regular hangouts. We had to move the last one back because it's just been news. Right now, there appears to be a bit of a lull, so we're going to take advantage of that. And then we are also going to have on Matt Dillahunty to discuss whether or not debates are still relevant in society, and we're going to have Christopher Mowdy on to discuss science communication, two of my favorite topics. So I hope you will join us. Joe Biden has officially clinched the Democratic nomination. He will be the Democratic nominee for president. Colin Powell, a veteran of the Vietnam War, commander of the 2nd Brigade and of the 101st Airborne, former Secretary of State, former National Security Advisor, and former Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under President Bush, has come out and endorsed Joe Biden. He joins a growing list of other notable Republicans who will not be supporting Trump and or are actively voting against him, including but not limited to President George W. Bush, Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, Cindy McCain, Jim Mattis, and John Kelly, all members of the new, quote, Republicans for Biden movement. There has indeed been a marked change in the last few days regarding the protests. Multiple states multiple states' governors told Donald Trump that they would actively oppose any deployment of military in their states, as well as multiple incidents of public incidents of extreme police brutality have forced Trump to reconsider his bravado and aggressive position. He has laid low. Multiple states are now lifting curfews, including Atlanta, New York, multiple states/cities. I'm aware Atlanta's not a city. Thank you. I'm sure Tony's sitting there giving me a hard time. Active duty troops in Washington, D.C. have been ordered home. Seattle has vowed not to use tear gas, flashbangs, or any other anti-riot equipment. And there has been a temporary restraining order issued against the Denver police, barring them from use of such equipment without the supervision and assent of a captain or higher. We discussed that at the opening. The Minneapolis City Council has unanimously voted to immediately reform the city's police department and then subsequently voted to disband the city's police department. What they're going to do in its place, we don't know. But these are the changes that are happening, and while they are not perfect, indeed Seattle has already violated their promise not to use any anti-riot gear, including the sound devices and the tear gas and flashbangs. While they have violated it, the protests are actually bigger now, but they aren't taking as much news, and the reason is because they have become less violent. Without the police actively engaging and or trying to shove people out of the way for photo ops, it turns out most of these are remaining peaceful, despite, again, being significantly larger. We know a large part of this problem is institutionalized racism. That's why the Black Lives Matter movement has become the cornerstone for what we're seeing. There is no investment in minority neighborhoods because education comes from land taxes. That's how, property taxes. That's how most elementary and high schools are paid for. Without investment into communities, the minority communities can't get better education. They can't compete for the best teachers because they simply can't pay them. You have dilapidated schools. You have a system that doesn't function. Without good schools, minorities can't get the same level of education, even when they can and do get the same level of education. They have a harder time finding a job. When they get a job, they receive less money than white counterparts of equal experience and background. With less money, that means they can't buy a home, it means they can't invest in their neighborhood, and the cycle starts again with their children that are disadvantaged. Institutionalized racism. But this is a cycle that's not nearly as bad in other countries in the world. There's racism everywhere, but the U.S. has had a harder problem with that than a number of other countries, and yet a number of other countries are also protesting. Why? The racism is a large part of the issue, but it's only one part of it. The other part is the culture of violence and brutality, of which the United States also does have a bit of a corner on that market as well, too. It is the abuse of innocent civilians by law enforcement officers. In every country, not every country, a lot of countries have suffered some of that. But the U.S. suffers it more. Now, as a white guy, even as a white guy, I should say, I always knew you don't talk back to the cops. You don't. You always say, sir, yes, sir. You answer only and exactly what was asked to you. You don't get lippy. If they choose to arrest you, you don't say no. You don't resist. You fight it in court later, do whatever you want to do. But when you're engaged with an officer, that officer is the law. That officer, you do. This is just something that I... And it's something that in some cases whites also have a luxury of being that way. But it doesn't always work even for whites. I'm going to show you the case now of a 17-year-old Devin Guilford. He was driving on his way to go see his girlfriend when he was pulled over by a police officer. He was pulled over for for flashing his lights at the police officer. We are now going to see, this is about a 5-minute clip. We will see Devin Guilford.
It's cut for flashing me with the brights. I did not have my brights on. Hello.
How you doing?
Can you get your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, please? Pulled you over today because you flashed me. I didn't even have my brights on.
Yes, you did, sir.
Nope, I didn't, partner.
Sir.
I'm telling you, because when I turned
I
around,
couldn't see. I could not see.
I didn't have them on, all right?
Dude, trust me. I know.
Trust me, okay? I did not have them on. When I turned around, I flashed them on to show you that they weren't on.
Well, you turned them off when you came around.
No, I didn't. Driver's license, registration. Driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, please. I did not have them on. Driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, please.
I don't even know you're an officer. 3 forms of identity.
Driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, please. You've been pulled over. My name is Sergeant Frost. My name is Sergeant Frost with the Eaton County Sheriff's Office.
That's your badge number?
You cannot see my badge number. $23.72. Start me another car, please.
I am video and audio recording for my safety and your safety.
That is absolutely fine, so am I.
You just told me that I could not have your badge number. That's
My
against
badge
the law,
number?
sir.
No. You asked me to show it to you.
Yes, and you said no.
My badge
You
number?
told me no. Is that correct?
No, it's not.
It is correct, sir.
You have two
Am I
choices
being
at this
detained?
point, sir. I'm giving you the option.
Am I being detained?
Yes, you are.
For what crime?
You flashed me with your high beams.
You had your lights on, sir. I swear to God, you had your lights on.
This is your option right now. You right now are refusing to give me your ID.
I have not committed a
Refusing
crime.
to give me your ID in a traffic stop is a misdemeanor. Right now you're committing a misdemeanor. You have two choices. You can get with the program and start to comply with this traffic stop, or you're going to be taken to jail. Those are your two choices. Driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance, please.
I do not have my license, sir. I am going to get it.
You don't have your driver's license?
I do not have it.
Why is that?
Because I just drove my brother to the church.
You do not have your driver's license on your person, correct?
Yes, I do.
Where is it?
You do not have to see it.
I do have to see it.
Why do you have to see it? You had your bike. I cannot see. I was gonna crash. I cannot see. You had your brights on, sir. I'm not lying to you. I was just doing that to be polite. I don't want you to flash someone and have someone go off the road and crash. You know?
Do you realize that if you'd have complied with this traffic stop, it would have gone a whole different way for you?
Yes,
Do you
I
realize
do.
that?
Yes.
You realize that I would have explained to you that I'm driving a brand new vehicle tonight. I have been
Yes.
flashed a couple times because these headlights are new. I've stopped a couple vehicles tonight and no people have gotten citations. But those headlights are brand new. They're brighter on that vehicle than they are normal
They're
cars.
super bright. You need to get new ones.
But my high beams were not on. That's what I would have come and explained to you.
Oh, I'm
Okay?
sorry.
But now I need your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance, please. Where's your driver's license? Now.
I do not have to give you that.
Central 2372, start me another car. Priority. You do have to give me your driver's license.
2372 is requesting priority.
No.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car! I'm telling you right now.
No. Hey!
You're gonna get tased.
Do not touch me, officer! Do not touch me. You cannot open my car.
Get out of the car. Now, out of the car. Out of the car, you're gonna get tased.
He says,
Out of the car or you're gonna get tased. Everything's being recorded, son. I got no problem with that. Get out of the car.
yes.
Get down on the ground now. Down on the ground
Oh my
now.
God, stop yelling at me.
Down on the ground. Right here, facing me. Down on the ground now.
What do you mean?
Get on your belly right now.
This is what American...
Put your phone down and put your arms out to your side now. Arms out to the side.
Are you all... I don't have a weapon. Hey!
Get your...
You can't
Son,
do that!
get your hands behind your back. You're under
You
arrest.
can't do that!
Get your hands behind your back.
Hey, officer, what are you doing?
Get your hands behind your back. You're under...
Officer! Ow!
That was the last 5 minutes of the life of 17-year-old Devin Guilford. Yes, those were shots. He was shot repeatedly by the officer. His crime was flashing his lights at someone at a range of less than 500 yards. The officer's lights were bright. It was a brand new car. Devin had ostensibly thought that the lights were on. He was trying to notify him to turn them off, and then had a bit of an attitude, which, as it turns out, 17-year-olds often do. He did strike the officer, so this officer was able to argue that he was in fear of his life, and he shot and killed the 17-year-old. There was absolutely no reason, none, that had to happen that way. None. The officer was the adult in the situation, but he didn't like being talked back to. He didn't like the kid's attitude, and so then you saw what happened here. There is a growing movement now to cut funding to police departments across the country. The mayor of New York has already pledged to cut funding and spend money on social services. While more social services is a great idea, cutting funding will make this problem worse. Police officers already feel under siege. Increasing that feeling, making them feel less valued, making them feel more vulnerable, isn't going to help. Having fewer officers, believe it or not, isn't going to help. It's the same mentality that Bush used with the No Child Left Behind Act. The notion that, well, hey, if a school's failing, the best thing you can do to make it do better is take away its funding. we cut enough funding, maybe we can make every school in the country best schools in the world. This idea is insane, and it heaps injury onto insult of schools that are barely. My apologies, I'm a little tired. It piles onto schools that are already losing funding and can't afford to lose more, and you're doing the same thing with the police department here. The problem is culture. It's not just the institutionalized racism in our country, which I spoke about earlier. That's a huge part of it. That's certainly the lion's share of it. But it's also the culture of many police forces across this country. The culture that they are the law, that they are empowered to make people obey at all costs. Not that they are servants, not that they are civil servants, not even that they are here to protect people, but that they are here to imprison people. They are here to capture people. They are here to go out and get the bad guy. And if you're not a bad guy, when they find you, oftentimes they will, consciously or not, find a way to turn you into that bad guy. One of these days I will, thank you, Tony. So I was out of the, yeah, we're back because that's, my wife would love it if there was a mute button that I couldn't undo. So I apologize. I muted myself to avoid, and I got to get out of the house. So as I said before, I think there's a lot of problems. It's going to be a multi-pronged approach. I don't think that the biggest problem that's been leading to these protests and riots, I don't think that's all coming from the Second Amendment. I don't. But I think it's a much bigger element than people have considered. The reason our officers are armed is because our criminals are armed and our civilian population is armed. So we have to arm the police as well. But right now we have a situation where there are more police officers killing innocent and unarmed civilians than there are bad guys killing the police officers. And the police officers are trained. They're the ones who are supposed to be risking their lives. Why are they killing more innocent people than guilty people are killing them? And not that we should have to make that kind of trade, but so tomorrow we're going to have on uncivil law, and we will be discussing the LRAD devices, the long-range acoustic devices. I did show you guys the sample of that, so we do know that it's been deployed now in Portland. So for those of us who've been sitting there in the Discord trying to figure out, it's been deployed. I'm going to be in the Discord afterwards. I'm going to be in the after show. We're going to hang out. We're going to chat. I'll be around for a little bit. So if you guys want to join us, we can chat a bit more. We can chat the Second Amendment. But like I said, I don't think the Second Amendment is the whole cause of this, and it's not even the biggest one, but it's a bigger one than people have considered. And I think we'll talk about it. So I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Hope to see you in the Discord later tonight. I apologize for the muting, and talk to you guys soon. Thanks.